We have a restoration job for you today. Are you ready? Welcome back to Preservation Travels with Lane and Kevin. We're back in our beautiful home state of Arkansas in downtown Little Rock in the Quapaw Quarter. We have a restoration job for you today. We're often asked, is there nothing in between a home that's been fully completed and priced as a fully completed project and one that hasn't had a single thing done to it, where a beginning restorationist is terrified to take on the project? And we understand that. We've been there in those beginning phases too. So today, we're bringing you a project home. And this is a project home that is absolutely perfect for the person who is just getting into preservation or restoration. You want to be in a historic neighborhood. The Quapaw Quarter is blocks and blocks and blocks of beautiful Victorian homes. You want a home that from the exterior has nothing but charm and character. And this home, this beautiful stick-style Victorian, definitely fits that bill. But on the inside, she needs some love. Here's the situation. In the mid-90s, a wonderful family purchased this home that had been the victim of a fire. So it had burned. It was in terrible, terrible condition. It was a pretty serious interior fire. They brought this home back to life and saved the structure from being demolished. They made some choices in the 90s that we as preservationists would never make. And the house on the interior looks like a house from the 90s. But we're gonna walk you through this beautiful home, showing you room to room, how you're going to take this home back to being a period appropriate property and give you the opportunity to dip your toes into the preservation and restoration pool without being overwhelmed. So let's start here on the front porch and take a tour of this glorious project, maybe just for you. So here we are at the exterior of the home. Let's talk about what's original and what's new. The benefits to that, maybe the drawbacks, but these are all things that you can decide whether or not you want to keep or whether or not you want to return to the original. It's perfectly fine as it is. And from the street, the facing facade appears to be a truly historic structure. So first, what's original? What's not original? Can you guess? Well, I'll tell you. The entire cladding on this house has been replaced with hardy board. This is not the original cladding on the home. It's been completely redone because of the fire damage. However, over this shoulder, you'll see that beautiful beadboard detailing, the gable brackets, the sunburst, and the fish scales on the front gable. Those are all original. So this beautiful bay behind me is a gorgeous original feature of this stick-style Victorian home. The porch posts are also original to the home. I don't believe the balustrade is original, but it is in keeping. Let's talk about this fan light and the top gable. The top gable shingles are not original. They have been replaced. You'll also note the little fan light in the top gable. Not original. Not only not original, but not appropriate. If I purchased this property, that would probably be the first change I would make, because it's one of the first things that screams not original on the front of this home. The front door, not original. You have a colonial revival style door, transom, and side light on this house. Not appropriate at all. But all of these pieces and parts that are not original and not appropriate are easy to change. A local salvage yard is going to have all the pieces that you need to replace that door surround, replace that fan light, and get it back to looking like it did 100 years ago. Another monumental change to the exterior of this property, one that we would never make, is none of the windows are original in the property. They removed the original windows and replaced them. However, they did replace them with vinyl clad wood. They are a very high-end replacement style window. So if we have to have replacement style windows, these are fairly good ones to have. Let's go inside and we'll talk about the restoration that we need to have done in there. Come with me. A couple of other elements out here that have been beautifully done. This tongue and groove porch floor is completely historically appropriate. It's even painted the right color and it's in fantastic condition. And also note, The gorgeous brick skirting. It looks like it's been done with historic brick around the foundation, which is a lovely touch by the previous owner. It is beautifully vented, and this entire foundation has had all of its piers, beams, and joists either reinforced or replaced. So you have a brand new foundation underneath this home from which to do your work. Come on inside. So here we go. Welcome to the 90s, but more than 1990s rather than the 1890s. So let's talk about what you can do to bring this lady back to her former splendor. Something that is interesting about this property is it obviously went through two massive periods of renovation. The one that we're obviously talking about in the 90s, and then one that happened probably around 1920. As you can see behind me, this newel post banister handrail, they were in the house when it burned. They, I believe, were part of a very early renovation. You actually can see a lot of scarring from the fire, and the before pictures tell us that this configuration was here when the home burned. However, it is absolutely not appropriate for the period of the home, and one of the things that this earlier renovation did was lower the ceiling height in this entryway so they could further utilize the attic space. So you have a very, very low 8-foot ceiling in this entryway and a banister and handrail that are not period appropriate. Now, they've been here for 100 years at this point. So could you preserve them and maybe rework the way that the space upstairs functions so that you could raise these ceiling heights back up to their appropriate and original height? That's what I would do. Let's go into the living room and I'll show you what I'd change in there. Well, here we are in a monumental living space. The thing about this space that is spectacular is, of course, the incredible height of the ceiling. So we have 12 feet, gorgeous room with 6 windows that allow natural light to flood in. Let's talk about the positive things in this house, right? Let's talk about the things that have been done beautifully and that you are not going to have to worry about. The home has been completely rewired. It has been completely replumbed. It has a relatively new HVAC system in it. Those major systems are going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. All you have to do here is cosmetic work. So even with the price of the house, you might have another $50,000 to $100,000 to invest depending upon the finishers that you want to use to really return this lady back to what she should be. So what do we do in this room? How do we take her back to what she ought to be? Well, the thing that we're missing in here that's glaringly obvious is our fireplace. During the renovation in the 1990s, the homeowner took a lot of before pictures. And one of the things that we can see in the before is that there was a chimney dangling freely in this space. Obviously the fireplace, the mantelpiece, and tile were lost in the fire, or perhaps they've been looted out of the house once the fire occurred. But there should be a beautiful Victorian period mantelpiece, high style, stick style Victorian with those gorgeous glazed tiles. That would be one of the very first things that I put back into this space. We have beautiful high baseboards, so 2 thumbs up there for that. However, our entablature and architraves and our cornice on all of these windows are completely incorrect for the period. They're too small, they're too thin, they're not the right style. So you could very quickly return some of the period look to this room with some simple millwork. Easy to do. This space that separates this living and dining area, obviously, what are we missing here? If you know me, you know what we're missing and what I am specifically missing. There should be either pocket doors in this space, or there could have been bifolding solid wood doors to separate these 2 spaces. When were they removed? Was it during the fire? Was it during the 1920s? Who knows? But there should be large pocket doors or bifold doors that separate these 2 spaces. But again, we're talking about very minimal cosmetic work, replacing the ceiling fan with something much more appropriate to the period, taking down very inappropriate sconces and putting in period appropriate lighting fixtures. Easy changes, fun changes that will give you the opportunity to return a historic home to what it should be without breaking the bank. Let's take a look in the dining room. Another beautiful dining room space. One of the things that these historic homes have that we just don't have in modern spaces are these gorgeous dining spaces, because this was the heart of the home 100 years ago and before. So another beautiful space, 2 glorious large windows with so much potential in this space. My first change, the chandelier over the dining table. Put a more appropriate piece here, and you've changed the whole feel of the room. I know some of you are gonna ask me about the stained glass over the doorway. It's a mystery. I honestly can't tell you when it was put here, should it be put here. We don't see a ton of stained glass used in a transom space because transoms were meant to be functioning spaces. They should have been able to open and close. I have a feeling that this was put in during an earlier remodel and it's not original. Would I leave it there? Probably not, but that can be left entirely up to you. Another positive that we have in this house is that we have hardwired fire detectors, something that you're gonna have to put in by code when you're doing a rehabilitation or restoration. It's already been done for you, so that's fantastic. Again, replace your entablature and architrave, do the same thing over the 2 doorways, and you've returned this room to a more period appropriate feel. Now, between these 2 windows on this wall, do I think it's highly likely that there was originally a fireplace here as well? Absolutely. Not definitively, but the placement of the windows suggests that in this pier area would have been the perfect spot for a secondary fireplace. That would have been sort of the focal point of this secondary, very important space. So why not take that opportunity and put another one in? Historic mantles are my favorite thing in historic homes, so I'm gonna put one everywhere I can. Let's take a look at the kitchen. Great space in the kitchen. One of the spaces that we struggle with in these historic homes is the kitchen. Not enough space. They're very small, they're very dark. We have these gorgeous windows that flank this wall. I have to wonder how tall the woman was who owned this home. She did pass away unexpectedly, very unfortunately. So it's been kind of a joy to get to wander around her house and look at the art and the memories that she has collected here. There's some beautiful things here. I'd love to take the time to show you individually, but unfortunately, that's not what we're here for. But I can't help but imagine she must have been very tall living here alone with these high cabinets. There are granite countertops. It's a very functional space, but again, were I designing the space, there are massive changes that I would make in here. The first being probably removing this width of cabinetry and reworking the space. The lights that hang are fantastic, 1930s deco lights. They're missing their bottoms, but I did see a photograph of them in the before and after picture, so I think they may be hiding around here somewhere. Let's take down these track lights, enjoy our Bose sound system as a nod to the modern, but redo the kitchen space in a more appropriate and maybe unfitted style for a Victorian home. One thing we have in this home that we don't often see in homes of this period is a main floor, main bedroom. So let me show you that space. Well, this room gives us incredible evidence of that first renovation that I told you about. First of all, this door is extant in the before photos, the photos right after the fire. This could not be a more pristine example of a craftsman door. It just couldn't be. Look at it. And so therefore that tells us that at some point during the 1920s, this home underwent a renovation. What we have in this room that we don't have anywhere else in the house is some wavy glass and some original windows. These are 4/4s, so those also tell us that this space was added at a later date to the rest of the construction period of the house. But this is a good size space. This is a nice main bedroom. There's a king size bed in here, plenty of room for side tables. We just, again, need to do a little bit of unmodernizing, I guess, unupdating to the space, and you'll have a beautifully appropriate bedroom on your main floor of the house. Attached is an ensuite. It is a combination laundry bath space, but if you look at this wall and you reconsider your space here, you have plenty of room to divide the 2 spaces to create a laundry space and a separate bathing bath space along with a closet. This space just needs some reconsideration, which could be pretty easily and fairly inexpensively done. Let's take a look at the other side of the house. All right, so we were standing in what is clearly a space that suffered from the first renovation of this house in the 1920s. On the facade of the home, we have matching 2/2 tall windows, but I'm standing in a room with 8-foot ceilings, and on that wall, we have 6/6 windows, which are clearly a later window. And we have, again, the dropped ceilings. So what happened in this space? Same thing that happened in the 1920s in a lot of spaces, including our own home. It became much more in fashion to have a lower ceiling. When the arts and crafts movement came in, ceiling heights came down, especially once we get into that period where Frank Lloyd Wright is starting to design. We're seeing that influence come in. Ceiling heights really lower. So I feel like this part of the home suffered from a renovation in the 1920s. We have some windows changed, we have some ceilings lowered, and we have some interesting things going on with the floor. I know from the before pictures that because of the fire, there was no flooring whatsoever on the opposite side of the home. In here, we have the oak flooring running north and south. The entryway and living room, we have the same flooring running east and west. So I think these could potentially be from the early renovation, this side of the home. It's possible that these floors were retained after the fire, and on the other side, they replaced them. We know they weren't there from the photos of the fire. There was no floor at all. So there were some flooring decisions made. I'd love to know the answers too now. Can you leave these floors? Absolutely. Are they appropriate for the home? Absolutely. What would I do? I'd pull them up and put heart pine in. But that's just me. Down here, you also have a powder room, which could use just a few little touches. For some reason, a mystery that we'll never know the answer to. The previous owner, or the one before that, took the one original clawfoot tub that was in the home when they bought it, and they've encased it in this wood paneled surround and put a mosaic tile pattern around the top. Very easy to undo. Might be the first thing I did. Come back here with me. Well, here we are in another sort of quintessentially 1920s, 30s space. Behind the cameraman, currently there's a wall that's got a beautiful stretch of 6/6 windows, and then we have another set on this wall. Low ceilings in here. I feel like this room could be a complete add-on to the original body of the house, and one of the ways that we can discover that is by looking at the Sanborn map. So if we go back and look at the original Sanborn maps early on, it'll tell us how the construction of this house progressed. So we'll be able to see whether or not this room is original, I doubt that it was, or if it was added in the 20s and 30s, which I would lay money on. So that concludes the bottom floor of the house. When you go upstairs, you have one very large ensuite space. You have a large bedroom. And another large bathroom. Obviously, the space was converted at some time in the 1920s, and it's continued to be used as that converted space. Now, would I love the opportunity to reconfigure it? Absolutely. This is what you simply do not ever see in a downtown historic district. An extra lot along with the house. The size of this magnificent tree alone makes this house a buyer for me. But look at the gorgeous walkway, courtyard, and garage behind me. These are things that are almost impossible. We never see them in a home of this period and in a neighborhood of this style. Typically, these lots are very narrow, and you would have had a house and then another house here. But for this price, you're getting the home and all of this absolutely magnificent yard behind me. The garage is a spectacular space. It's big enough to do obviously to store your cars, which is its function, but to have a pottery shed, a craft space, a studio, so you could keep that separate from the main home. So let's talk about the details of this house. All of the positives that you're gonna have in this beautiful home. You have a brand new roof. You have all brand new or almost new mechanical systems. You have a new foundation. You have a new paint job on the outside. You have gorgeous copper gutterings. You have all of the elements that cost so much money when you're doing a restoration, rehabilitation, or preservation, and are so frightening to first-time preservationists. All of this, the home, the lot, the stunning location can be yours for $400,000. And for a slight investment over that, you can turn this jewel box of a Victorian back into the beautiful lady of age and grace that she deserves to be. I have faith in you, and if you don't have faith in you, ask me. I'll be happy to help you out. We hope you've enjoyed this tour of our first You Can Do It rehabilitation project, and we'll see you next time on Preservation Travels with Lane and Kevin.